Today we're going to look at this beauty. This is a truck that we bought for Kyla a few years ago. And she was wanting a truck because her father had had a truck when she was young. He had a, it looked like a GMC, like a early 50s. And so we looked around on eBay a few years ago. And this is kind of a be careful what you bid on sort of thing. So anyhow, we bid on this, and then what would you know, we won it. And so we look at it, it's like, okay, we won this truck. Okay, it's in Midland, Texas. We're in northern Wisconsin, so how are we going to get it here? Well, luckily my dad had, one of his coworkers was going down to hog hunt down in Texas, and he had a Dodge pickup with a turbo diesel, newer one, and so we threw him some money, rented a trailer, and on his way back he hauled this back from Texas for us. So I've done quite a bit of work a few years ago on this. Currently it is the original 218 flathead 6-cylinder, and I converted it to run a T5 5-speed out of a S10. And there was a gentleman in Michigan that had a kit for doing this with the Dodge trucks, and it was like 3 parts. It was really super simple. The hardest part about it was drilling holes in the original bell housing, which is just this enormous cast iron thing. Let's see if I can get a picture of it over here. Yeah, there we go. Kind of. There's the T5. So it actually was quite simple, and I used the original Dodge clutch flywheel, and then used the clutch disc from like, I think it was like an Astro van or something. It's been a few years, so, but there she sits. The only downside of this is I do have to run electronic speedometer because this particular T5 has the electronic pickup in it. Which isn't a big deal. Those are easy to find. The other mod I did on this truck a few years ago is full Jaguar XJ6 suspension. There is the rack. I had to do some altering on the fuel pan or oil pan to make it fit. But yeah, it's got Jaguar XJ6 front suspension in it, complete with this way bar, the whole works. Let's see if I can get another view from another spot. Maybe from the front will work better. Not real good lighting in here. But there it is. I just now have gotten back into working on this truck, and I put new ball joints, sway bar bushings, and bushings for the rack. I put new ones in, and yeah, so this is in pretty good shape. I had bought a really rusty XJ6 and pulled the front cross member out of it. And this pretty much bolts in here. The way I worked it out is it just bolts in. There's probably about 20 bolts holding in. It's probably way overbuilt, but there she sits down in there. And then that required putting in an aftermarket steering column because the original steering gearbox would have been part of the steering column. So this is just like a plain aftermarket hot rod style, GM style. So, and then once I got rid of the original 3-speed, then I had to go with a different rear end. So I had a friend that had an old Dodge Dakota that he was parting out, and the width on the axle's a little wider on a Dakota than it would be like an S10 or something, which worked out good with this because this truck's actually a little bigger than some of the other trucks in the era. So this is a Dakota rear axle, and then let's see, the rear leaf springs on these things were just ridiculous amount of brass bushings and stuff, and it was all wore out. They don't make a leaf spring kit for this truck. What I have here is, this is from TCI, Total Cost Involved. And this is actually for the early 50s F1. And I had to remove all this is where the original shackles were from the Dodge. The front spring pretty much lined up with this. You can see a hole right here. That's pretty much where the front pivot lined up. And then, so I just re-drilled, removed the old stuff, re-drilled, and put this in. So it actually worked pretty good. Good solution. Got rid of all the greasable bushings on the rear suspension. So, and then I was able to run a modern parking brake, because this originally had a parking brake on the transmission. And then the same Dakota donated the emergency brake setup, was from the Dakota as well. So I have a foot operated emergency brake. And then with the, let's see, with the doing the Jaguar front end, then I went with power brakes with it, and then I mounted on the cowl instead of the blow. Way down there would have been, way down there, that hole would have been where the original Dodge Master cylinder was. I kept the clutch, all the clutch linkages for the pedal and everything are the same as stock. That nothing changed there. Okay, so got that far. The engine was really tired. And then I think, like a lot of engines from down south, after they get to a certain age, they don't even bother putting antifreeze in them. So this thing had, the guy that we bought it from knew it was going north, so he put antifreeze in it. But the engine was really tired. I decided to rebuild it, and it was rotten inside. There's a, if anybody's messed with flathead Mopars, there's a, by the exhaust valves, I think it'd be on this side. Yeah, all the valves are right below the spark plugs. There's a tube that runs the length of that. That's like a water distribution tube. And that's to help cool, keep the exhaust seats areas cool. And that thing was just rotten. It took me a long time to get that thing out of there. But this is actually now board 80 over. It's got all new bearings, pistons. I had the valve seats done. So it's a cam and lifters, all that's timing chain setups, all new. And then there's a gentleman in Michigan that does these flathead Mopars, and this is running now a GM HEI. Since I'm not a super huge fan of points, I know everybody loves points, blah, blah. I don't care. I like electronic on them, so don't mess with it. This thing sat in our other garage. We got a garage, another piece of land just south of us, that this thing sat for about 10 years in there. And actually, it's 3 years since I rebuilt the engine, and I had fired right up. There was no problem with the ignition. Once I dumped a little gas in her, she went. So, and I had to make my own setup for the alternator and the power steering pump. Not a lot of options for different pulleys on these old, so it's a single pulley. It seems to work. I don't get any belt squeal out of it. Seems good. So, and I mounted a battery. I built a box, put it on the firewall, but I think I might rethink that, just because it just clutters things up too much. So, and then all the wiring's new. I can't remember which kit I bought. It might have been a quick wire kit for this one. But I think there's the modern fuse panel. So, and then just a simple heater, because we live way up north, and even when it's summertime, sometimes it's cool. Gotta have heat. And so, and that's kind of it. My project right now is, I was originally going to have a gas tank mounted back here. In fact, I had put one in it. I didn't really like it that much. It was a little closer than I wanted it to be to the diff. And after it sat for so long, the tank just got rotten inside. So I just pulled that out, cut off all my mounts and stuff, and then found on Tanks Incorporated, they did list one for a late 40s Dodge pickup, and then on their website said that some people have been using them in these early 50s ones with slight modification. So that's what I'm going to try to do next. However, if I'd have known this before, I wouldn't have filled in the gas filler. So that's where the hose would have went down in. That's where it came through the side of the cab. There was just a steel hose that would go down to here to fill the gas tank, because the gas tank could be right in this area here, which, as it turns out, is probably the best spot for it on one of these. Putting it back there was kind of a mess. And we didn't want to have a filler through the bed of the truck. We do want to actually use this thing a little bit. I don't own, a modern pickup, so I just use trailers. But anyhow, we got all new glass in it. Did this probably 3 years ago. I got the glass, and luckily the curved ones are good, but all the rubbers are good. And I do have a box of all the fuzzies and gaskets for the vent windows and all that. I have in a box right now. I just ordered them. They just came in like a few weeks ago. So anyhow, that's kind of it. Kind of a not too bad of a project. We had to eventually figure out something when do at the front. Right now it's just running off of a IV just to move it around. It drives, it moves. So, but I got the bed, pretty much most of the paint knocked off. But this isn't going to be a show quality restoration. I got a bit more work to do on this, and then we got the boards ready for being varnished. All the bits and pieces to put that back together so I can get this bed back on here and make it a truck. So anyhow, that's a little update.